video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content. Following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
The red, white, and blue. I can't lose with the red, white, and blue. My whole crew is the red, white, and blue. I represent the stars and stripes. I am a patriot, a true American. I am a champion, yes, and that's on everything. I will protect my home. I will defend, fighting tooth and nail to the bitter end. I don't play to lose, nah, I play to win. Rain, sleet, or snow in the wingland. What? Let me say it again. I play to win. What it is tradition. I'm in the game, playing like Brady. 10 soldiers deep in the field, no Navy. Riding for my soldiers and they riding for me. No matter where I touch down, it's a TD. 2 hands up, yep. Field goal.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Pat's Nation Nightly, episode 27. As always, I'm Zach Ventola, as always, joined by Ben Belford-Peltzman. We got a little special guest here today to preview these upcoming couple of days with the Patriots-Eagles crossover. We got Coop, Quignon, right? That's how you
Quignon.
I should know that. I was at the Senior Bowl. Quignon Clamps. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Doing good. I'm excited to get into this show, kind of previewing the Eagles and Patriots joint practice that will take place tomorrow, and then, of course, the second preseason game, which will be Thursday. And it's a good time because Gerard Mayo last week said that Drake May will be getting a lot of reps in these practices. So I guess my first question for you, Coop, is what are you looking forward to in this joint practice tomorrow?
I'm really looking forward to seeing one of the guys who's really been promising Eagles training camp is Johnny Wilson, and he's a 6'6" wide receiver out of Florida State, and I really like to see how he's going to go up against, if he'll be outside, maybe going up against guys like Christian Gonzalez, or maybe in the slot where he can get more work. I think that'll be a good matchup to really see how things go there.
Now, that's a great thing to bring up. What have you seen from the Eagles this training camp? They have been so close. They were so close last year. Of course, the Chiefs won it. But what are you seeing for them to kind of get that Super Bowl win this year? And have they been showing any progress at the major positions this year?
Yeah, I think for one, the energy of the entire franchise just seems like they're headed in the right direction. Things were obviously a little downhill last year. We had the mid-year collapse and everything was not going well. But with new offensive and defensive coordinators, I think things are really picking up, especially with the offense. The Eagles had the least pre-snap motion in the entire league last year. But with Kellen Moore as the new OC, it's cool to see things kind of evolve from what they were last year to the offense having more moving pieces to get guys more involved and create space, unlike last year's offense.
Now, of course, they got that win last week against the Ravens. I think it was like 16-13, 17-14, something like that. What did you see in the preseason game last week, and how can that translate this week to, I guess, the game against the Patriots?
What I saw was the first group of guys we had in was a really strong group. Besides the offensive line, I think that is a concern that I saw going in. I know Kenny Pickett got sacked at least twice. Tanner McKee got sacked a couple times. And with some of the guys that the Patriots have, I feel like that could be a problem in the game coming up. Another thing could be Jake Elliott, for whatever reason, missed an extra point and a field goal in that game, which it's just a preseason, so a loss doesn't matter relatively, but it's still good for the guys to experience that win and to help them boost their motivation going into the season.
So, Coop, obviously, again, the Eagles are a Super Bowl contending team, and this is a practice that they're going to be doing with a team that's closer to being in contention for the number one pick. How would you describe like a victory, I guess more so a moral victory in these practices? What would that take?
I mean, as long as you're doing your 111th on offense or defense, I feel like not that the Patriots still have a top defense in the league, so at least offensively, it should still be a challenge. The defense should have an easier time with a lot of rookies on offense. Taking reps against Drake May, Joe Milton, a lot of young guys. They have promise, obviously, just with a more experienced defense, should have an easier time against the young Patriots offense.
Now, last week we had Panthers ESPN reporter Sheena Quick on the show, and we were asking her for her like outside perspective almost as someone who doesn't cover the Patriots. How is this team looking? So I'm gonna ask you, obviously Eagles fan, that's your team. How do the Patriots look at quarterback with Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, or just in all? How's the team looking?
I've heard lots of good things. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I've seen a lot of good things about the Patriots. I know a lot of people like to make it out like there's this big QB battle between Drake May and Joe Milton, when I would assume the reality is that that's just not there. Joe Milton, 6th-round pick. Drake May is obviously clearly better than him. So I've heard lots of good things. There's always going to be the backlash from Dolphins, Jets, Bills. Patriots are going to get the first pick. Not going to win any games this year. But I think it's a young team with a lot of promise, and I'd say I've heard more good than bad on them this offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. Obviously, it's Drake May's job to kind of lose. Jacoby Brissett is poised to start, but then it's Drake May, and then Joe Milton will be that third quarterback, although he has looked really good in the preseason. Now, the Eagles, shifting back to Philadelphia here, they just got a swamp and a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. Why was that change made? And can you give any insight on these new guys at the coach's position?
Well, as I mentioned before, offensively, if you watched any of the last games of the season, the play calling was just abysmal. We were losing the Cardinals, like Giants. It just was a train wreck at the end of the year. I mentioned before that we had the least pre-snap motion in the league. It was just very basic offense, and defenses were taking advantage of that because we weren't doing anything to prevent it. And then, so I think with Kellen Moore, who had top scoring offenses with the Cowboys, that the offense will hopefully not just break down middle of the year like it did last year. And Vic Fangio was brought in. That is what I'm more concerned about, because the Dolphins defense last year wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. But from what I've heard in training camp, the guys seem to really like Vic Fangio a lot more. So I'm just hoping that the new revitalized defense, a lot of young guys, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson. I just hope that they can get their spark back and to help the team, have a deep playoff push and contend for the Super Bowl.
Now, obviously, the Eagles had a massive offseason, just a couple, or free agency, draft, all of that. Who are you most excited to watch? Maybe one on offense, one on defense, and how come?
Well, I mean, offense, it might sound like a basic answer, but I'm going to have to go with Saquon Barkley. I mean, behind that Eagles O-line, that's one of the top offensive lines in the league, if not the best. I feel like he was able to have relatively good seasons with the Giants with their abysmal offensive line. I really think that he could be one of the best running backs in the league again behind the Eagles offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And on defense, I'm a little biased, but I am very excited to see Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. I think was the best corner in the draft, athletic wise, and I think that he's going to make a lot of plays. I believe he won't start right away. That'll be Slay was one of the outside corners, and then Isaiah Rodgers and Keely Ringo are competing for the other corner. But Slay is obviously getting up there in age, so I think Quinyon Mitchell could be a really good successor to Darius Slay on the outside.
And then again, another big Eagles move this offseason, not an addition, but rather a departure. Jason Kelsey's retirement, of course. And I want to know, first of all, how have they been able to fill that hole? I mean, that's a pretty massive loss. And also, what are you going to look for tomorrow and on Thursday from whoever's filling that role in the Eagles offense?
To my understanding, Jason Kelsey, believe it was 2 years ago, scouted out his own replacement in Cam Jurgens. Cam Jurgens has been playing at guard for the past year, but I believe he has moved back to center, and he will be the one to kind of take over for Jason Kelsey. And I like the fit. I mean, I trust Jason Kelsey. I think he could find his own replacement, which he did. I really just want to see. I know there was a tiny bit of trouble in camp with the snap to Jalen Hurts, which obviously just takes time to get used to. But I really think the drop off and center play won't be as huge as people are expecting. I just think the tush push might be a tiny bit harder to accomplish than it was in years past, but I think we could still get it done.
Now, another move you guys made over the offseason is getting Kenny Pickett. I think it was for 2 second-round picks, something like that. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback, but it was 2 late-round picks. I don't even know what I'm saying. 2 late-round picks. Oh, not second. 2 late-round picks. But what does that mean for the backup quarterback position? Has he looked good in practice? Obviously, he was the starter in Pittsburgh. How has he transitioned to the Eagles?
Yeah, I've heard only good things out of practice. A lot of people were causing drama at the beginning of training camp, saying he's looked better than Hurts, stuff to that effect. That's not true, but Kenny Pickett has looked good, and I think he kind of showed that in the last preseason game. He wasn't in for that many drives, but he did leave a scoring drive down the field. He threw a touchdown to Will Shipley. The offensive line didn't do him any favors while he was in, and he still was able to come out with points. So I think that's big. And backup quarterback's important in the league. Saw what happened to the Eagles just in the Super Bowl run in 2017. Your guy goes down, you need someone to fill in. So
You didn't have to mention
that was a good addition.
You didn't have to mention that season. We could have put that in the past.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on a little bit more so specifically to the preseason game rather than the team as a whole and the joint practice. How do the Eagles typically, I guess, run player personnel in preseason games? Are they playing the starters are they playing the starters at all? Or are they giving them one drive? How are they running that operation?
Well, I know it was kind of a mixed bunch in the first game. The big stars, A.J. Brown wasn't in, Devontae Smith wasn't in, Jalen Hurts wasn't in. But a lot of starting guys did get reps, like Cam Jurgens, like I said. A lot of O-line and D-line guys. Some fringe guys like Nolan Smith. I know he had a sack last game. I really expected to be more of the second and third string guys. Even guys like Quinyon Mitchell weren't in the game that long. It was a lot of, third string Tanner McKee's out there with, a lot of guys people have never heard of before. So, yeah, I expected to be mostly third team guys, a little bit of second in the beginning of the game. And probably for this game, pretty much none of the first string guys.
So the teams, the Eagles and the Patriots have met 14 times in the regular season. They have played over 20 times, 23 exact times in the preseason. The last time they played in the preseason, the Patriots got that victory 35-0. That was in 2021. It was Mac Jones's probably best game with the Patriots regular season and and in the preseason. And of course they met last year. I think it was week 1, 25-20. It was Tom Brady Day. And that was an exciting game just because the Patriots came back. Now for this game, there's gonna be a joint practice, like we were just saying, at the start of it. Do you think how's it going to be different between the reps given to the starters in the joint practice, between the reps given to the starters in the actual game on Thursday?
I think there's going to be a drastic difference. In joint practice, I would have to assume from prior years that the first team guys would be getting the majority of the reps. They don't want to put their bodies on the line too much, but they still want them to be ready for when the season starts, as opposed to preseason when they will more than likely not be in the game at all, especially like I mentioned, the big stars on offense. Like, you just got Saquon. You don't want to injure him in a preseason game that doesn't matter, So I would have to assume that in the joint practice, there will be a lot of first-string guys the entire time as opposed to preseason, which will be probably none.
Now, again, shifting the focus a little bit, I want to bring up a question. We'll have everybody go through it, give one example, but one matchup that you're looking forward to watching in the joint practice could be receiver, cornerback, O-line, D-line, but one specific player-to-player matchup between the Patriots and Eagles. And Coop, you can have the honors of starting us off.
I'll pick Patriots wide receiver, I believe Demario Douglas.
Yep.
I'm excited to see him go up against really any of the younger corners on the Eagles. Cooper DeJean has a slight chance he'll be back, but I am not sure. Go against guys like Quinyon Mitchell, Keely Ringo, because Demario Douglas is someone who I feel is very underrated, and I think that will give them a good matchup to get the best experience possible out of practice.
Now, one thing that I am looking forward to in the joint practices is the offensive and defensive line play. That's something to me that I'm always watching in these joint practices. The Patriots held them with the Panthers last season. It's like how does it work in the trenches between the two teams? And honestly, I know a little about the Eagles O-line, right? But I don't know as much as I used to just because of the turnover between Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, whatever. So how's the offensive line looking in a few sentences? And then how's the defensive line looking in a few sentences?
So the offensive line still, you lost Kelsey, but you still have Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, who are solidified, really good tackles on both the outside. Cam Jurgens moving to center. There's obviously, I believe, right guard is up for some competition. A lot of speculation that Mekhi Becton will end up getting that right guard spot. He obviously was acquired from the Jets this offseason. The D-line the D tackles are a strong point on the D-line. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, 2 first-round picks. And Jalen Carter has just been amazing in camp. He had a great rookie campaign. However, the edge rusher situation is a little bit shaky. We signed Bryce Huff in the offseason, which helps. But outside of that, there's not a lot of experience besides Brandon Graham, who's a rotational guy. So someone like Nolan Smith is going to have to step up if the D-line wants to be dominant in practice and in the game.
Now, how's the coaching staff looking? We've talked a lot about the players, but how's Nick Sirianni specifically looking as he enters this training camp and as he enters the next regular season?
Yeah, there's a mixed bag about Nick Sirianni. I really don't know what to trust. I think that he's taken the Eagles to the playoffs essentially every year that he's been there. I think that he's proven himself as a coach. However, there is a little disconnect believed to be between him and Jalen Hurts, and I think that is maybe the most important connection in football is the head coach and the quarterback. So if there is any issues there, that could be big, causing problems during the season.
You mentioned earlier that that right guard spot and how you think Mekhi Becton, or at least there's speculation that Mekhi Becton could be the leader for that role. Do you think personally that he is going to win that job? And what do you expect to see out of Becton or anybody else competing for that job possibly on Thursday if they...
I personally do believe that Mekhi Becton will win the starting right guard job. He has all the talent in the world. I know it was a change from, I believe he played left tackle and now he's moving to right guard. So obviously there was a lot to learn with that, but everything from camp says that he is doing great. I believe he's taken some first team reps at right guard and, he'd probably be the biggest right guard in the league. He's a big dude. And I think that would just work miracles for, the Eagles, who are a run heavy team, tush push, Jalen helping him with the RPO, stuff like that.
For sure. And then again, looking back on the offensive line for the Eagles and bringing up matchups again, Keon White versus those Eagles offensive tackles, Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. I mean, two bona fide stars going up against a really young, talented player. What do you want to see there? And I mean, first of all, I'm excited because Keon White has looked incredible. And again, he's going up against two Pro Bowl caliber tackles.
I mean, personally, what I'm looking for is I would love no sacks whatsoever, no pressures. Obviously, because I need the quarterback staying safe. But I would not be surprised if Keon White got a few big plays in there against them. He's a fast guy. But personally, I'd rather him never get through the line.
What would a successful, just talking about the season overall here, what would a successful Philadelphia Eagles 2024 season look like in your eyes?
Honestly, with how high the expectations are, and after falling off last year, this season for us is kind of like go big or go home. I feel like if you don't at least make it to the Super Bowl, the season's kind of going to be viewed as a loss. I mean, you went all in the offseason. You signed so many big names, had a good draft, and if that doesn't work out, I mean, it's kind of no matter what happens besides a win in the Super Bowl, it's kind of going to be viewed as a down season.
Ben, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel just a little bad because usually we have the guests introduce themselves at the beginning of the show, and I just realized that we didn't do that. So quickly before we continue, we're about like midway, 75% of the way. Could you just introduce yourself, how you kind of got into being a NFL Eagles fanatic, and where anyone could find your work, either your Twitter account, your Instagram, whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, didn't really like football when I was younger. But my dad, big football fan, Michigan and Eagles household here, which when I was a kid was a pretty big struggle. Wilton Speight era and Chip Kelly. So I was like, I couldn't really get into it. And then the year before we drafted Carson Wentz, I was just like, I'm gonna give this a shot. And football has been a major thing in my life. If you look around my room right now, there's all this sports stuff. I played football when I was in high school. So it's just been really big. And I got on Twitter because I kind of just wanted to, talk about football with a lot of people who understood it. And, I didn't expect my account to take off. But now, I got over 6,000 followers on Twitter. And I get paid to talk about sports on Twitter. So
There you go.
It's going well.
It's kind of the dream.
Yeah.
Now, before we end the show today, your predictions of what's going to happen in joint practices, and then your predictions in what's going to happen in the actual game itself on Thursday.
I would say joint practice. I expect the Eagles to kind of be more dominant in the joint practice. Our guys, just a lot of experience. However, in the preseason game, I think just the Patriots just have more to prove, and I could definitely see them coming out with a win. Especially if you're leaving your guys in May. And I think this is a very underrated team all around, and I think there is depth on the team. So I could definitely see the Patriots coming out of the preseason game with a win. But I'm going to have to be, biased here. And I'm going to have to say that I would like to see the Eagles win no matter what the game is, preseason, regular season. So I'll say that the Eagles are going to win.
Now, looks like Zach's having a few Wi-Fi issues, but I will say my prediction is going to be a 21-13 Eagles win. I think the Patriots had a great showing against Carolina. I feel like this week it's just going to be a little tougher competition. It was the backups in Carolina. It's probably going to be the starters or the backups in Philadelphia. So that is why I believe that the Patriots will fall to the Eagles, and I'm going to say 21-13. Zach?
I'm going to go with 20 to 17 Patriots, just because I think Drake May will play a good amount of the game, whereas guys like Jalen Hurts won't. I think the Patriots offense is less established and therefore will play more than guys on the Eagles, and that'll kind of help them put some points on the board. Ben, I want to just open up one quick question to you before we officially wrap up. How, or I guess, what do you expect the snap split to be for Drake May with the starters tomorrow in 11 on 11s?
So I think that Drake May will have a decent amount of snaps just because he didn't play a lot on Thursday against Carolina. I think between Jacoby Brissett and Drake May, I feel like there'll be a pretty maybe 60-40. I think they're gonna share a lot of the reps against the Eagles.
Interesting. I just wanted to throw that out there because it was on my mind, and obviously May hasn't gotten a ton of playing time with the starters as of recently, but again, just wanted to throw that out. Anyways, thank you all for listening, to everyone who tuned in. Coop, thank you for joining. Just one more time. I know we literally just went over it, but let them know, everyone who's listening, let them know where they can find you across social media.
Yeah, you guys just find me on Twitter. My handle is Quinion Clamps. I always follow everyone back, and just a lot of positive interactions on there.
For sure. Ben, again, you got it too. Let them know where they can find you.
Patriots Beat on Twitter, the Patriots Beat on Instagram, thepatriotsbeat.com to find all of the latest analysis and news surrounding your New England Patriots.
I froze for a minute. My bad. But anyways, thank you all again for listening. We'll be back for another episode either tomorrow or Friday, previewing the game or recapping it. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.